In this video, we will bootstrap our Angular 2 app and configure our base component, which we will call the home component. Then we will configure the video component so we can preview our app. This is where you need to start thinking differently when building Angular 2 apps. In Angular 2, everything is based on components, so we really can't think in pages anymore. The way this works is we first create a base component. This component will host all of the other components. In Angular 2, these components are self-contained with their own templates and logic. We can even configure routing in our components. Of course, the unique syntax of Angular 1 is gone, as is the controller. Instead, we will build our apps using standard JavaScript compiled from TypeScript. First, let's go into our app folder, and then into the modules folder, and then to the app.module.js file. We're going to rename this file to app.module.ts. Now, if you notice, this file has our module definition, our routing config, and our bootstrap function. For this app, I did not use ngapp and instead used the bootstrap method. Fortunately, we don't need any of this code, and frankly, we can't use it in Angular 2, so we can delete this file completely. Before we can do anything in Angular 2, we first need to import the things that we need. Angular 2's modular nature only gives you what you ask for from the framework. First, we will import the bootstrap function. Then we can import our home component. Now, this is how we will call all of the scripts in our app from the module that needs it instead of adding all of our scripts inside of the HTML file. Then we add the full RxJS library, which we will need to work with the HTTP service. Then we import the router provider service from Angular so that the router is available to our app. Then we import our custom service that we're going to build, and after that, we can bootstrap our app. Here we are telling the app to start and display the home component. We have added the router providers and the YTube service to the bootstrap function so that these services will be available to all the components in our app. Next, let's go to the homepage folder and create a file called home.component.ts. Notice we name our files with the TS extension. That is because the TypeScript compiler will create a JS file when it runs. The first thing we need to do in the home component is import component from Angular core. This gives us our component decorator from Angular. Then we import our video component. We will create this component in a moment. Next, we will import the router directives and the route config. Now, for this app, routing is overkill, but I just want to illustrate how we can convert features from one platform to the next. In Angular 1, I needed routing to make the app work and pass parameters. I can do the same thing in Angular 2, but I can also make this work without using routing at all. Now in this component, we aren't migrating from a controller, as the home page in our original app did not have a controller attached. The first thing we need to do in this component is add the component decorator. This will supply our class with metadata that indicates to Angular 2 that this is a component. Then we add our selector. This indicates that this will be the selector for our app. Remember we placed the myapp tag in our index.html file? This is where Angular 2 will place our home component when our page loads. This component will also deliver other components inside of its view. This component is present to host other components and not much more. The HTML template attached to this component is where we will load our other components. Next, we will add our template. Notice that we have to add the full path for our template. This is because Angular will start at top level and walk its way through the path. If we just add the homepage folder and the home.html file, we will get an error, although we can find that path from where we are. This is the template that this component will load. Then we add our directives. Directives are how we incorporate other components. Remember I said all Angular 2 components are directives, and in order to add them to our template, we need to import them here. We will add a component here when we set up our search bar, but for now we will just use the router directives. This special directive serves to host the components we navigate to with our routing. Then we will set up our route config. This is where we will set up the routing for our app. Again, with such a small app, this is overkill, but I wanted to show you how to set up routing in Angular 2. In Angular 1, I needed routing to make the app work properly, but for Angular 2, again, this is not necessary. As you will see, setting up the same functionality in Angular 2 will not require routing. Here we just set up one route to the video component. The path is the root of our app, and the route is named video. The component that this route points to is the video component. The use as default means that this is the route we will be sent to when our app starts. Then finally, we add our class. We use the export keyword to make this class available from our other modules. After that, we're done with our home component for now. Next, we can go over to our home.html page. Here we can wrap this HTML in a div with the class of container fluid. For now, we will leave this HTML in place. The last thing we need to do in this file is add a router outlet. This is why we added the router directives. Router outlet will host the views from our routing. As you can see, we have a combination of static and dynamic content on this page. As we build our app, we will add more components on this page so that you can see how we can mix and match components. After that, we are done with this page. We will quickly set up our video component so that we can preview our app. First, create videocomponent.ts inside of our video page folder. In this case, we are just setting up a basic component to make sure our app is working. First, we will import our component and router function from Angular. We need the router because this component is navigated to through a route. Then we add our component. We don't need a selector because our template is going to be loaded in the router outlet. Then we add our class. This is a very basic class that we will expand on as we go along. Now let's go over to our video.html file. In our original app, it took 2 templates and 2 controllers to make this work. For our Angular 2 app, all video will be handled by the video component. First, we will remove the wrapping div with the controller and the ng in it. Then we can change the string in the first row and remove the srch string interpolation. We aren't doing anything here except letting us know that our app is working properly. After that, we can comment out the remaining code as we will use it later. After that, we can save our project and run npm start from the command line while inside of our project folder. But before we do that, I have to do one thing. Let's go back to your app module.ts and remove the references to the YTube service. This is because we haven't reconfigured our service yet, and if we launch it with this reference, it's going to cause an error. Now go ahead and save your project and run npm start from the project folder. When we run npm start, TypeScript will be compiled and our project will be launched in the Lite server. And as you can see, our Angular 2 app is up and running. It doesn't do much yet, but we'll fix that in a moment. We can hit Ctrl+C to stop our server, and then we can put the references to our YTube service back into our app.module.ts file. After that, we're done with our initial configuration of our app, but again, it doesn't really do anything. In the next video, we will start to fix that as we convert our service over to an Angular 2 service.